Hi, I'm Rich Slevin with H2O Partners, FEMA's training contractor with the National Flood Insurance Program. And today we want to talk about appurtenant structures, specifically detached garages. Now the short answer to all of this is that the program essentially writes one building per policy. So if you've got 5 buildings, you've got to write 5 separate policies. Now there's only one exception to this, and it only applies to detached garages, and only to detached garages that are insured under the dwelling policy coverage form, which is intended for 1 to 4 family residential buildings. All other buildings would need to have their own policy. The program's other 2 coverage forms, the general property form and the residential condominium building association policy, they don't extend coverage to any type of appurtenant structure. So, under the dwelling form, an insured has the option to apply up to 10% of his Coverage A building limit to a detached garage at time of loss. Now that's not an additional 10% worth of coverage. Any amount of coverage limit that is applied to the detached garage reduces the Coverage A building limit. So for example, if you have a dwelling that is insured for $200,000, the insured can extend up to 10%, or in this case $20,000, over to that detached garage at time of loss, but that leaves behind just $180,000 worth of coverage for the dwelling itself. And the program is quite specific about what is not a detached garage for purposes of this extension. The dwelling form says that no coverage applies to any detached garage that is used or held for use for residential, business, or farming purposes. So if the insured gives it another occupancy, even if it just holds it for that occupancy, it ceases for purposes of this extension to be a detached garage. Now that doesn't mean that we can't insure it. We certainly still can, but now a separate policy has to be written on it. Here's a few other key points about detached garages. Number 1, detached garages are considered non-residential structures, so any Coverage A building losses would be settled on an actual cash value basis. Number 2, under the dwelling form, personal property owned by the insured or by the insured's household family members is covered inside a building just so long as that building is at the described location. Notice I didn't say which building. It can be in any building just so long as that building is at the described location. And by that we mean the location that is described on the deck page. Finally, number 3, Coverage D, increased cost of compliance, does not extend to any detached garage unless that detached garage is written on its own policy. So in summary, under the dwelling form, an insured is allowed to extend up to 10% of his Coverage A building limit to a detached garage at time of loss. But that 10% does reduce the Coverage A building limit. It is not an additional 10% worth of coverage. I'm Rich Slevin, and that's how the National Flood Insurance Program handles detached garages and other appurtenant structures.